Pollard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to speak in this debate. I want to thank my honourable friend from Hove and Portslade for introducing this debate so well and so timely. In phrases that I hope will soon be consigned to the history books, I want to, in my remarks, encourage the Minister to get the revs up, to find the bite and accelerate our action on ending the sale of new petrol and diesel engines. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to speak very briefly about the 3 C's in relation to this: the crisis, the context, and then the choice that we have. We all know about the crisis, the climate crisis that this Parliament declared, but clearly on the political agenda that we must take bolder and swifter action to achieve radical action. And that is what has happened in language, but not in actions yet. We need the ministers to be bolder and swifter. The announcement that we will achieve net zero is a good ambition, and I welcome it. But I'm concerned that it's at risk of falling into a trap of being easy to say and hard to match. And that's why we need to not only make sure that people can say net zero much easier than Paris climate change commitments, but we must make sure that the actions are commensurate with that greater ambition. And that means we must be much more honest about the enormous economy-transforming fundamental changes that are required to deliver net zero, not many years away, but now. If we are to do that, we know that we're already missing out on our 4th and 5th carbon budgets as a country. And though the ministers in the department heap praise on achieving the carbon budgets as we are now, we need to do more heavy lifting to achieve those 4th and 5th carbon budgets as was required before the net zero commitment. And now we have a net zero commitment, we must go faster still. That means reappraising policies made before the net zero announcement, and that must mean bringing forward the date for ending the use of petrol and diesel engines. The context here is also important, Madam Deputy Speaker. We are lagging behind our friends, we are lagging behind other countries in banning petrol and diesel engines, and we are slower of many of our peers of rolling out hybrid, hydrogen and electric vehicle charging points. But it doesn't need to be that way. As my friend from Hove has said, we're already a global leader in this area. So we are at risk of throwing away that natural advantage. Now, as my honourable friend from Nottingham South has said, we need to be clear on the 2 dates in this debate. Firstly, the debate on banning the sale of new petrol and diesel engines, and then the date on which there can be no more use of diesel and petrol engines on our roads in Britain. I think the government is lacking ambition on both of those dates, and I want to encourage the Minister to bring them forward. We cannot afford to wait to 2040 and 2050 in this respect. We must be bolder in our ambition on here, and that means not only putting forward an ambitious date, it means making sure that date is legally binding as well, because I don't want it simply to be a mission as outlined by ministers in 2018. I want it, I don't think a vague hope, a chance encounter with reality. I want it to be a legally binding date that will focus the minds of industry, ensure the government of the day has a plan to incentivise the early retirement of these engines, and ensure that EV charging points become the norm nationwide, not just areas of best practice, as we've heard from members on both sides of this. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, there's another element that we have so far not spoken about in this debate, and that's in relation to autonomy. Because by the early 2020s, more and more cars on our road will be autonomous. They won't have a driver in charge of them. As we get into the 2030s, nearly all our cars will be autonomous. Those autonomous cars will be electric, and they should be, and that is what must happen here. But that means a fundamental change. Now, autonomy is something that will change the way we interact with vehicles, both cars, buses, trucks and vans. And we need to be clearer that autonomy is in many cases quite scary. As my friend from Hove spoke about, the fear of going into electric vehicles for the first time will certainly be a fear many people have of having an autonomous electric vehicle. But it will reduce accidents and it will mean, in theory, greater capacity on our roads. But that also means that we'll have more cars on our roads, because at the moment we only have cars travelling on our roads with people in. And it sounds a very basic point, but with autonomous cars, we'll have cars, vans, trucks and buses on our roads with nobody, not a single person in. So the number of cars on our roads will increase, as will the number of cars due to population change. Now, I support the measures to encourage more people to walk, run, cycle, to use public transport, but we must be honest that in many parts of the country, those public transport systems do not exist in the volume and in the frequency that they need to in order to achieve that change. And that's why we need to recognise recognise that greater number of vehicles on our roads must be matched by a reduction in petrol and diesel engines. Madam Deputy Speaker, in the 2017 general election, I forwarded the idea of extending the M5 from Exeter to Plymouth to make sure that Plymouth can harness the jobs and investment opportunities. But we must be sure that that extension of the M5, which I'm very glad that my front bench has committed to undertake a study of when in power, must be accompanied by a quid pro quo of ensuring that there is no diesel or petrol engines used on that motorway extension, because we need to take action on climate change, recognising that there will be an increase in the amount of cars on our road as we go through. In relation to the points that have been raised earlier, I just want to add one other thing, and that is about how we deal with planting. Now, it's not necessarily directly on petrol and diesel engines, but rubber crumb and brake pad emissions must also be built into this. And if we are re-engineering and reimagining our whole transport system based on more electric engines and ending diesel and petrol use, we need to be more inventive about how we plant alongside our roads. That's taller trees and mid-level bushes, and also low-level shrubs to capture particulates, to muffle noise, and to make sure that there is a carbon offset as well. All of those can and should be done if we have the ambition to do it. And I know the general public want politicians to have more ambition here, so I look to the Minister and ask him, please bring forward the date to end the sale of diesel and petrol engines and set a clear, legally binding date so the entire country can know that there will be no more diesel and petrol engines used on our roads. Thank you.